Welcome everyone to Greenfirm Hangouts. My name is Rebecca Olo, and today we have a really special segment. We are calling it Up Close and Professional. This is actually a sequel to our last video on post-carbon cities. And with us is a really special guest. She's a friend, but today, because we are talking about professional stuff, we're gonna keep it professional. We're gonna keep it up close and professional. And I'm really excited. I think you can tell from my energy right now, because this is a conversation that we really are excited about as Greenfirm, and feel free to comment on the comments below. And over to our guest, Olivia. Please introduce yourself to the Greenfirm farm.
Thank you, Becky. I'm excited to be here. When Becky first told me about Greenfirm Hangouts, I was first of all curious to know what it is, and the moment she explained the objectives and the vision, I was quite excited, and I'm glad that she has finally slotted me in to join and to discuss this important topic. So my name is Olivia Diambo. I'm an environmental planner by profession. So my work revolves around environmental management as well as social management. So I'd like to think of myself as both environmental and social specialist, social management specialist. In terms of experience, I've quite a broad experience. I've been at it for the last 11 years. So immediately after I graduated from university, I worked in an NGO that was working in the counties. Back then it was not counties, that was working with the communities. So I worked with community forest associations, and over the years, this experience has taken me to national and international engagements on climate change issues. I've worked on policy issues. I've done programmatic implementation of climate change and consultancies as well. So I've quite had the 360 degrees experience. Although I'm still yearning for more, I feel like I've just scratched the surface. I still want to go deeper into understanding the issues that affect our communities and how we can best address them together.
Oh, thank you so much. As I told you, Greenfirm, we have really exciting guests coming up on this segment, Up Close and Professional. Thank you, Olivia. You have said you want to go deeper. So this segment today, we're going to go deeper into post-carbon cities. As we know, cities play a really pivotal role when it comes to social economic growth. And at the same time, we are plagued with climate change. And I'm really happy to have you on board because you have done a little bit of work at the local level and the grassroots level. So if you were to look at the big talk on post-carbon cities, look at our counties. This is Kenya, having a devolved county system. How does this all tie in? Is it something that is possible when you look at policies? Are we on the right track? We have so many questions, but just to start us off, how can counties just transition to that path of being a post-carbon county, so to speak?
Great. Thank you for that question, Becky. I think Kenya is at a very unique point because the discussion around post-carbon is developing, and also our devolved systems are yet to develop. We are less than 10 years old when it comes to devolved government systems. And in terms of policy formulation and implementation, that's quite a young age. So for me, I see nothing but opportunity for counties to grab this discussion and take it to the next level and demonstrate other countries how it can work. So the first point of entry would be, of course, to develop county-specific policies that address post-carbon. We have counties that have resources that can easily transition them into a post-carbon county. I'll give you an example of Kajiado County. So in Kajiado County, we have a wind power plant that is coming up. That is a unique opportunity for the county to harness that energy and peg it on their county development so that they are less dependent on fuel-based energy and more focused on renewable energy. Secondly, we have counties such as Eldoret County. There's a very huge solar plant coming up in Eldoret County, and that is an opportunity for the county government to partner with the government to make Eldoret a renewable energy powered county. So there are quite a number of examples that I would like to share, that I'll probably share through this discussion. But in terms of policy development, I think we are right on the spot. We can focus our policy development to bring about opportunities for investors, invest in counties to invest in counties and to harness the resources that will transition us to a post-carbon world. In terms of implementation of this policy, because you cannot just start making beautiful documents. In terms of implementation, I think the counties have formulated their structures, they have their ministries in place, they have their executive committees in place and whatnot, but we also have an opportunity to create county-specific desks or county-specific departments that address the needs that will require us in transitioning to a post-carbon counties. So there's a huge opportunity in that. I've seen a number of counties coming up with climate change funds, and they can use these funds to transition them into a post-carbon post-carbon counties, and enhance actually their development in that trajectory. Lastly, I would like to talk about the political opportunity. At the global scale, the discussion is quite ripe. I mean, there's the UNFCCC negotiations that are encouraging cities and countries to transition to low carbon green growth. So countries need to actually tap into these discussions and look at multilateral partners with whom they can engage in order to achieve this objective. Back to you.
You've really gotten into the topic, which I'm just sitting here and having mental notes because I really can't write right now. But you've talked about a very important aspect, which is implementation. And I think for a long time, whenever we talk about the counties, we have our national, like for example, we have our national climate change action plan, a climate change adaptation action plan. We have our strategy. We recently also had our climate change act. I think one thing that sometimes we observe is that we have all those papers. Where is the missing link? For now, we're looking at the counties. What can counties do to make it better? Because as it stands, people might be hearing us right now saying there are opportunities, but they're not. Maybe they're wondering, how are these opportunities? How can we harness these opportunities? What can people do? For example, especially I think I would be interested in finding out what can businesses do now to tap into that opportunities at the county level to just help them transition to a post-carbon county.
All right. Thank you once again, Becky. That's a very timely question because I've just been talking about policies. For me, I think there is no disconnect. Oftentimes in policy discussions, we always highlight the disconnect. But for me, it's about everybody taking up their responsibility and acting upon it. You've mentioned the National Climate Change Action Plan. It has provisions for literally everybody. If you talk about government, they have their responsibility there. If you talk about the private sector, they have their responsibility there. If you talk about civil society, me and you, we have our responsibility outlined in that plan. So it's a matter of every sector taking up their role and actively pursuing it to completion. And we have seen that, Becky. We have seen in the private sector, you have seen organizations such as Safaricom championing for green growth, championing for sustainable development goals. So it is not that it is not happening, it is that we need to look within ourselves and ask ourselves, what is my role in relation to this policy? Have I talked about it with the next person? And that's the next person about it to the next person. Have you about it with your member of parliament? Find out what they are doing in parliament with regards to this plan and how they can catalyze the process of its implementation. A lot of implementation within government is pegged on finances. By talking to your MP, you're simply asking them to look at the next budgeting cycle and factor in climate change needs into that budget. By talking to your civil society representative, you're simply asking them to make bring this more into attention, into the public attention, so that people can take immediate action. So it is a matter of each and every one of us looking at our responsibility and not pointing fingers. I think a lot of times we spent a lot of time and energy pointing fingers, whereas we ourselves at the individual level, we can make a change, we can make a difference. Because as an individual, you're a member of a constitution, of a constituency, you're a member of a county, and you can even put your representative task and ask them what are they doing in regards to the implementation of the action plan, because counties also have a responsibility, and this responsibility goes right down to your ward representative. So let us stand up boldly and let us take the action that we are rightfully supposed to take.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Now, going back to the meat of our discussion, post-carbon cities, and now looking at opportunities for young people. As a country, we actually have a very high percentage of people who are unemployed, and it's something that is worrying. I think we've had so many leaders coming at the front talking about how do we create opportunities for young people. As someone who has dealt so much on advocacy and dealing with communities, and an environmentalist, what kind of advice would you give for a young person who's looking at us right now and wondering how can we solve this matter of will post-carbon cities, transitioning to a post-carbon city, will it help us to deal with unemployment or create opportunities for job opportunities? People are wondering, does it mean that I will be somewhere planting a tree? So there's that misconception that people normally have on talks on climate change and environment. Maybe you can just broaden it for us, showcase what are those opportunities that we're talking about when it comes to job opportunities in a post-carbon county, so to speak.
All right. So in any transition, there are opportunities and there are disadvantages. In a post-carbon world, in a post-carbon county, I see more opportunities than I see challenges, especially for our young people. Let me explain why. A post-carbon county is focused on green jobs. And who better to engage in these green jobs than our young people? If you talk about the transport sector, we are talking about transitioning to mass transport systems that reduce our carbon footprint. That will require youth to build the infrastructure for these mass transit systems to operate them. We do not expect the older generation to be the one to set up the infrastructure and to operate. This will largely be upon the young people to execute. If we look at the energy sector, I've highlighted two examples. We have renewable energy through wind farms and through solar farms. And then again, these are new technologies that will require young and innovative people to set up and to manage and to implement. So I see quite a huge opportunity. If we look at agriculture is transforming. We are no longer looking at the agriculture that my grandmother practiced. It is transforming. It is becoming more efficient. It has to evolve to a point where there is less of a carbon footprint. We are talking about focusing more on locally produced food rather than in exports. So that means there'll be need for you to produce more to meet the demands of the local market. So for me, I see a huge potential. And within this transition, I see the need for technology. And who right now engage in technology? It's the young people. We need to think of applications, apps that we are developing to address the gaps. We need to think of making this transition process easier. so that we are able to seamlessly transition to a low carbon green economy at our counties. So for me, Rebecca, I urge young people to open up their eyes, to open up their minds, to look at what the future will. Don't look at now that you're jobless. Look at what the future will demand of us and try to address the futuristic problems, not the current problems. On the other hand, Becky, this transition will render a lot of industries redundant. So there will be need for a just transition into this low carbon economy. We will need to look at how how key sectors will be affected and how they can be transitioned to ensure that there is less impact, especially on young people who are already suffering from unemployment. So for me, I see a huge opportunity, but also I want to engage with the key decision makers on how can we make this transition a just transition. Thank you.
That's a big question. How do we make the transition a just transition? And you have asked something that has almost been like the elephant in the room, because as it stands right now, when we look at our cities, most of the problems we face right now, especially when you think about climate change, there's a lot of changes that have happened, land cover changes, land use cover changes, and now we are talking about having a post-carbon city. Where will we set up, for example, the solar farms? Where would we set up the wind farms? And I think one of the concerns people might have, how will it affect, for example, the different livelihoods that have been established for our generations and generations to come? And I think I would like you to maybe speak into that and sort of just, because I think there's always, as much as we would want, it almost seems like a trade-off situation, but how would you, just if it was a sort of like a debate that was being aired out in a county council, how do we make sure that everyone sees the benefits and actually comes on board for this sort of transition?
Okay. Thank you, Becky. And I'd like to highlight our keyword here, which is transition. And transition, to loosely interpret the word transition, it's a gradual process from changing from one dimension to another. So the post-carbon countries are not happening overnight. They're happening over a period of time. So this requires us to really plan, to look back and see what will have to be dropped, and to look forward, looking at what will be needed to achieve this post-carbon world. So for me here, when you talk about transitioning, I look at a key element, which is planning. And remember that this post-carbon world is coming amidst a number of challenges. We have a very fast-growing population that requires land for settlement, land for commercial use, land for recreational use. So how do we address these competing interests for land, especially when you're talking about the growing, the expansion of cities, the growing of towns? I would say it is important, it is vital and important for us to look back at our land use plans. We already had land that was allocated for urbanization and land that was specifically required or set aside for agricultural purposes. We cannot do away with that. We need to keep that and maintain it, because we are having a population that is growing and that will require food. We do not want to transition to a food insecure world. So there's need for a very dynamic look at where we are heading. There's need for concrete planning and involvement of different actors, looking at who will be affected and how that their effects can be mitigated, and also looking at who stands to benefit from this transition.
I think that is a really good place to just put a comma on it. I feel like from this conversation, we have just probably gotten on the second layer of post-carbon cities. And I'll give you 1 minute. just to speak to a young person. I know you earlier on spoke to the young person, but I'd like you to specifically speak to young people who might be watching this, or not even a young person, maybe an environmentalist out there. Just encourage them what they, just encourage them and just speak to them and, do your thing. So I'll come back later in 1 minute so that I can wrap up.
All right. Thank you, Becky. I'm always passionate about young environmentalists, and my advice is for you to know your cause. Environmental field is quite broad. There are quite a number of issues. I mean, we are not short of challenges. There are quite a number. But know what your cause is and really focus on it in terms of determine who your audience is, determine what your message is, and determine how you want to deliver it. You can deliver it through research, you can deliver it through advocacy, you can deliver it through community engagement, or even all those combined. There is no limit to what you can do. Don't wait to be employed. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to be done. And sometimes when we get so fixated on employment, we miss the point of why we're environmentalists to start with. We're environmentalists because we want to bring about social and environmental change that is positive to everybody. So know your cause, understand it, know who your audience is, and engage with your audience. There are so many platforms right now, so use all of them to reach out to that audience. And lastly, define how you want to engage, the tools you want to use, the approach you want to take. There is no limitation. And also read. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I think that will mark the end. Read, and know that there's no limitation. As Greenfirm, we believe strongly on that, with no limits. And our goal is to provide solutions to all generations. So stick around with us. If you are watching this video and you have not subscribed, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our different social media platforms. Thank you very much. Till next time, this is Greenfirm Hangouts, and over and out.
Bye.
Bye.